Hi everyone, welcome back to this Homestead Life. I'm Jenny and today we're going to be making an easy no-knead sourdough loaf. Now we're going to be making the bread today and we're going to be baking the bread tomorrow morning. So let's get started. Okay, so before we get started, let's go over a few things that you're gonna need for making this bread. So you will definitely need some type of scale for weighing your flour and water in grams. This scale is nothing special at all. I literally stole it from my husband's workshop. He uses it to weigh packages and it works also fantastic for weighing out your flour and water. So just make sure that you have something to weigh your ingredients with. Also, you will need some type of cast iron Dutch oven or pot, something that is cast iron and also has a lid. This is a Dutch oven that we use for cooking over our campfire. It works incredibly well for baking your sourdough bread. I'm also going to be using my Le Creuset pot with lid and for baking the second loaf, because this recipe makes 2 loaves, and I'm not sure if I said that before, but it makes 2 loaves, so I will be using 2 different pots. And thirdly, you will just need to make sure that you have these 3 flours. We're going to be using a combination of all-purpose flour, whole wheat flour, and bread flour. Okay, I've got freshly fed sourdough starter. It's been sitting out for about 4 hours. It's nice and bubbly. Step 1 is to weigh out 500 grams of all-purpose flour on your scale. Next, you're going to add 200 grams of your whole wheat flour. And then you're going to add 250 grams of bread flour. Next, you will add 650 grams of warm water, and you are going to just slowly pour and stir this just in little segments until you've poured in all of your water and mixed this flour and water combination really well. You may want to get in there and work it with your hands just to make sure everything is well incorporated. Okay, next you're going to add 200 grams of mature sourdough starter. You're going to pour that in, and then you will measure out 20 grams of fine sea salt. Okay, you're going to stir again with your wooden spoon, just making sure that this starter and salt is all mixed in. Okay, now you're just going to cover with plastic wrap and just let sit out for 30 minutes before we start doing the stretch and folds. Okay, now it's time for the stretching and folding. You're going to be doing your first 3 stretch and folds every 15 minutes. So after your dough has been hanging out on the counter for 30 minutes, you're going to start your stretching and folding. You're going to be doing exactly what I'm doing here every 15 minutes, turning your bowl, pulling up part of the dough, stretch it up and fold it over. This works really well with wet hands. So this is exactly what you're going to be doing. This is going to create the big air bubbles in your bread. So this is a really important step. You'll do the first 3 every 15 minutes and the next 3 stretch and folds every 30 minutes. So you'll do a total of 6 stretch and folds. Okay, now you're ready to just let your dough hang out. This is when it's going to be doing its bulk ferment and doubling in size. So for me, I really like around 4 hours, anywhere between 3 and 5. This time I'm doing 4 hours. So to me, that just gives your bread like enough of a sour taste that it tastes like sourdough, but it's not overly sour. So if you are more sensitive to gluten, you might want to leave yours out to ferment longer than that. So it's really just up to you and your personal preferences. After your bulk ferment is done, your dough will have giant air bubbles just like this. And it is time to just very gently turn your dough onto a floured work surface. You're gonna be really careful during this step because you really don't want to crush all of those wonderful bubbles. So just be really as gentle as you can. And again, wet hands really help with this process as far as, the dough not getting all sticky and everything. Now this recipe makes 2 sourdough loaves. So now is the point in our process that we cut the dough in half. So you're gonna be making your 2 separate loaves. And I'm just using a bread knife here. And then you're gonna start just gently working each portion into a ball. And again, I highly recommend just wetting your hands because the dough will be fairly sticky. And it gets really annoying when it's all over your hands, but I promise if your hands are wet, it will be so much easier to work with. Okay, once you have your 2 loaves pretty well shaped into nice rounds, you're just going to cover these with a tea towel and just let them sit for about half an hour. You're just gonna let them chill on the counter, go do something for half an hour. Okay, now you are going to just be tucking each side of your bread dough in. I will show you the process. I'm just using a wooden scraper here to kind of pull it up. So you're just gonna kind of work with it, again, being as gentle as you can. You're gonna flip it over. You're gonna pick up one side, tuck it into the middle, pick up the other side, tuck it into the middle, other side into the middle, and fourth side into the middle. Okay, you're gonna do that with both of your loaves. Keep in mind, this does not have to be perfect. You're just trying to do the best you can. And yeah, it's pretty obvious that, I'm not a perfectionist at any of this, but I promise you it's going to turn out. Okay, you are almost done. This is the last step. So you are going to flour the top and you are going to put it upside down in a tea towel lined bowl. Make sure that the top of that dough has flour on it so it does not stick to the tea towel, and you're going to wrap these in plastic wrap, secure them with a rubber band, and put them in the fridge. Okay, now you can just pretty much kick back and daydream about that delicious bread and how amazing it's gonna taste when you bake it the next morning. Your work is pretty much done. You are just going to let that bread dough sit in the fridge for at least 14 hours. And the next morning, after the 14 hours, you will pull it out and get it prepared for the oven. Okay, it's the next morning and it is time to turn this bread dough onto the square of parchment paper and prepare it for baking. You're going to gently flip it over and take the tea towel off. And then you're going to lightly coat it in flour. I'm just using a sifter here just to sift some flour. You're just going to coat the top in flour and use a knife, or some people like to use a razor blade. I don't have a lot of practice in this area yet, so I'm just still doing a very basic score with a knife here. So you can get really creative with this process, but right now this is what I'm doing and it works. But I would like to try learning some other patterns for sure. So you're doing this, and then you're going to make sure that your pot has been preheating in the oven at 500 degrees at least 30 minutes before you put your dough in it. You want to make sure it's nice and hot. The lid as well. The pot and the lid need to go in the oven for at least 30 minutes before you put your dough in. Okay, now you are going to bake it for 20 minutes at 500. And then after the 20 minutes, you're going to take the lid off and decrease the temperature to 475 degrees and bake your bread for an additional 20 to 25 minutes. Okay, moment of truth. How does it look? Oh, this is the most exciting part. Okay, so maybe your scoring isn't perfect, but your bread should look golden and delicious. The cast iron really gives this bread an incredible crust. So yeah, and look at those holes. Aren't they beautiful? I hope that you love this bread as much as I do, and I hope that this makes you excited to bake it. I also hope that you found this video helpful and that you feel like the process is not so overwhelming. I promise you that the effort you put in will be so well worth it when you pull that beautiful bread out of your oven. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye.